Hello, everybody. Welcome in. Welcome to the stream. Let me get the audio set up here. Hope you guys are doing well. Man, we got some news to talk about today. You know, the Zos gods give and the Zos gods take away, but today they've chosen to give. We've got some to talk about. Let me catch up, guys. I'm a little bit late on starting the stream. Hope you guys will forgive me for that. I had a choice between I've been trying to prioritize my health, and I needed to go get some steps in, so I went and did that. So hope you'll forgive me. I love these comments. We already got some great comments going on. So for those who don't know, to set this up, we've gotten some news from Zos that they've got a deep dive here for us on ESO's class identity. They're doing a refresh. So here we are. What's up, chicken? Yeah, sorry guys, sorry for the wait. So Voss Boss already had this is a hilarious comment. On a beaten and battered wife returning to her husband because he recited my favorite poem. Oh, I'm a beaten and battered wife returning to my husband because he recited my favorite poem. Wow. Yeah. Yep. Yes, indeed. Eric, good to see you as well. Foss Boss, love that comment. Chicken, good to see you, man. Cool. All right, making some tea. Hey, Nani, what's going on? All right, guys. So we're gonna get in here. We're gonna talk about it. I took a moment. I realized that Skinny Cheeks had already he had already put out a video earlier this morning, and I wanted to see his take. I'm going to tell you, if you want a very hopeful, very glass half full, possibly a little bit too much, a lot too much for my taste, go check out Skinny Cheeks' video. It's great. He's got a lot of he thinks everything's going to be okay. I'm going to try to give you a more real, what I think is a more realistic. I'm sure I'm not trying to no shade at Skinny. I love him. I'm going to give you a different view, okay? And it's probably not going to be quite so rose-tinted glasses, is what I'll say. So just keep that in mind, all right? I don't want to be negative, but I do want to be realistic. And I think being realistic, we've heard a lot of this stuff before. So pretty interesting stuff. Let's just jump in and get talking about it now that we've given everybody a chance to get in here and talk about it more. Okay, cool. So developer deep dive. I just want to say, start off a little bit of positive. Doing a deep dive. Actually, let me change the scene here. How's that? Is that good? Is that going to be okay? Well, we'll move stuff around. If you guys have problems seeing anything, yell at me, and we'll move some stuff around so that it's in a good spot for you. I'm tentative that this is going to be good for us. I'll read it to you guys, so if you can't see it. Also, let me just go ahead and drop this link into chat. So if anybody wants to check it out later or what have you, and I'll drop it here on YouTube and on Twitch. For the Twitch peeps when they pop in. Cool, there we go. So, them doing a developer deep dive, these are great. I've talked about this before. And the issue with doing deep dives, if you're not an amazing company, is that what you're doing is you're showing people the flaws. And so you'll get a lot of backlash. And that's not good. You don't want that. If you're not transparent, if you don't listen to your community, generally speaking and historically, it's going to be a problem for you. It's still a good thing in general. It's a good thing for us as players. So it's good that they're doing it. But Zos is not generally transparent, and they certainly don't listen. Zos has a over a decade-long history of not listening to the community or listening and doing something about it so late that it doesn't really matter. It's kind of like, and I've compared this before, my wife asking me to I get the feedback that, hey, the trash needs to go out, and maybe that's my job, okay? And I get to it eventually. Well, if the trash pickup is on Wednesday and I get to it on Friday, haven't I not really done the job? And that's what we have with Zos. That's what we have a lot of times. If they do listen, it's so long after the fact that it doesn't really matter anymore. And we've moved on and there's new problems and what have you. Okay, so let's check this out. Let's see what we got here. Earlier this fall, we asked for your feedback on ESO's classes, including your pain points and overall impressions of class identity. Guys, again, they have done this so much. They did this to friends of mine very close that they asked for more targeted feedback, and they gave them. A lot of people have spent hours and hours of their lives to give them really great feedback, and they never listen. So them saying like, we've got your feedback and we've listened, I'll believe it when I see it. Okay, as as Voss pointed out, like I don't want to be the oft beaten spouse that oh, but maybe they love me this time. I don't trust them. So, as part of our efforts to address longstanding player feedback and improve the overall look, feel, and balance of combat, we're working on a long-term project to revitalize ESO's classes. Hey, it's great. Better late than never. So, before multi-classing came out, before that happened, about a year before, so about 2 years ago, is when they should have started working on this. So we're about 2 years late. Okay, call it a year and 9 months. Be generous. So they're about 2 years late, and they're going to tell us here in a second that it's going to take a very long time. We don't know how long. They don't know how long, which is good that they're keeping their schedule flexible. But it's going to take what, a year longer for them to fix this. So they're 3.5 years behind the 8 ball. Guys, it took them 10 years to get multi-classing in, and that's something they said they would have at launch. Just bring those expectations down, okay? It's like that old, anybody ever remember those Mad TV? It was a comedy show, and that they had like lowered expectations was the name of the dating service. That's a little bit of what we're looking for here. We got to bring our expectations down if we want to not be continually disappointed, which is what worries me for Skinny Cheeks, honestly. I think he's got his expectations and his hopes up. A little bit has changed his Zoss recently, but not very much. Okay, they didn't hire somebody from outside. They haven't done any huge sweeping things. They didn't get rid of there's a new creative director, but Rich Lambert is the old creative director. He's still there in some sort of capacity. So, yeah. To help the community understand the scope and context of these changes, we aim to be transparent about our goals concerning ESO's class identities. That's good. You can read more about our design philosophy, vision for ESO classes, goals, identity framework, and rollout for the related changes below. Hey, let's get into it. That's awesome. Voss says, I don't know how Skinny does it. I don't either. Skinny Cheeks, by all accounts, and by all my observations, is, you know what we could probably do? This might be better. Hey, that's better. He's an incredibly nice guy, and is just he's just really nice and doesn't want to ever, I think, say anything bad. I would almost say to a point, because sometimes things need to be said, but I'd rather be like him than the other way, right? Which is probably what I actually am. So Skinny's amazing. I don't know how he keeps a positive spin. When you see Skinny Cheeks like get frustrated and like walk away from his computer reading patch notes, you're like, they messed up. They fucked up. So it just is what it is. I feel for him. So as we discussed, as we discuss how our vision translates into our goals, it's useful to understand our design philosophy and a few key concepts that guide it. What does class identity mean to us? I just want to say that I think this is great that they're going through their design philosophy, because I've talked about this before, and I've said that, like, hey, I want to give them advice. I want to like comment on this, but I don't even know what they want. And there's so many different ways they could go. Really, two main ones in this particular context, but in general, many ways. That if you don't understand their basic, thought process on where they want to go, the direction they want to go, then you can't really comment. There's too many variables, right? And yeah, we'll get there. Okay, so what does class identity mean to Zoss? For us, class identity is what makes a class unique and different from other classes. This covers everything from a part of who they are, what they can do, how they look, what they excel at, and what they don't excel at. When we look at class identity, we use two core pillars to support the experience: source of power and power fantasy. This is, Voss says maybe the idea was to shell shock us with subclassing so hard we all forget what subclass identity is, and we'll be impressed by anything. Yeah, yep. I know you're like at least half joking, Voss. Just for people who don't know that, or just for clarity, I guess, for everybody. Sorry, I want to make this larger for everybody. That looks better. Yeah, just to like impress upon what this. Oh gosh, now I lost my place. Here we go. you know, we want to, what most people do a lot of times, so often, is they assign rationale, because that's what we want to do, right? Things happen and you're trying to make sense of them. And so we often do that. The thing is, um it like sorry, I'm reading comments and getting distracted. The thing is that there isn't one. Generally speaking, with ZOS, there isn't one. And trying to like, and Voss Boss, I know you're joking, but like basically what had happened is like they were doing one thing and now a new person's in charge and they're turning the ship and they're doing another thing. In theory, that's very good, and we I hope they keep it up. I hope I'm wrong. Okay, um, we'll get to it by the very end, but spoiler alert, I don't think I am, and I'll make some strong statements about that, why that is, once we get through everything. Luna says the text itself is great. The reality is usually not that bright, though. Yeah, and that's what happens, right? Like, we've gotten so much spin and so much corporate BS from ZOS over the years that we can't trust them, right? And while they've moved a few people around, none of it seems related to. I don't think that they consider it a problem, right? It's a problem for us. It's not really a problem for them, I don't think. So, uh, they've got a couple of pillars here. This has become such a it's almost a meme. The pillars talk that is used in so much game design now, that I wonder if it loses its meaning. But so they want to make classes that are unique, different from each other. Everything from a part of who they are, what they can do, how they look, what they excel at, and what they're not good at. Okay. What do we mean by source of power? When we talk about source of power for a class, we're referring to what the lore relevant origin of a class's power is, and what might differentiate them from a normal citizen of Tamriel. Questions such as these come up. What causes this person to become a Dragon Knight / Arcanist / Sorcerer? What are their motivations? Where do they get their power from? The answer to these questions help inform the way their abilities are developed as an extension of their source of power. This is like not a bad idea. I laugh because it's kind of hilarious, because with multi-classing, they just threw multi-classing in the game and they didn't even try to justify it or to make it make sense. And again, different creative director, but pretty much everybody else is the same, right? I mean, there's been some people that have left and things that have changed or what have you, but it's just hilarious that 9 months ago they didn't care and now they do. So they're trying to do something different. Sure. Yeah, we shall see. This sounds okay. We'll have some more, comments about this, I think, a little bit later. The problem they're going to run into, actually, I'll say this now. The problem they're going to run into is that, and they've already had this problem, right? So when ESO first came out, everybody had played other Elder Scrolls games. That's what we were coming from. And so we had expectations for what Elder Scrolls Online would be. And they made an MMO that was not, didn't have enough of the Elder Scrolls flavor for most people. And so it was really poorly received. It's been almost 12 years now since that moment. And what has happened is that people have become used to the setup of the classes as they exist now. And so they're about to redo these classes or change them. And I just wonder if they're not going to piss a bunch of people off, because now they've gotten used to what these are and now they're changing them again. I think that's what happened with multi-classing. They destroyed class identity. The other thing is like, it's kind of like punching someone in the face and then being like later on like, oh, I'm so sorry. And it's like, well, if you were sorry about it, why'd you punch me in the face? And that's what's happening here, right? That they destroyed class identity and then they're like, oh shit, we did something wrong. Oh, we're sorry. And you're like, anybody with a couple of brain cells to rub together could have told you that this was going to be a problem, as well as many other things. That they don't know that, again, just speaks to the fact that they have no concept of how players view their game, and that doesn't bode well for the future. it could be that there are a bunch of people at ZOS who have a very good idea, saw all this stuff coming. They feel similar to the way we do, and just probably what actually, if that's the case, what would happen over time is that they suggested ideas, and they were never taken up on them. So you want to keep your job, you like working in the games industry, you're happy with it. What do? Do you keep causing a bigger and bigger fuss, or do you just like go along with whatever? I would assume they would go along with whatever. And then, hey, new game director, right? Or game director, new creative director. Like, let's now he's like, hey, what ideas do we got, right? And maybe they feel like they can submit ideas. And for any of us who've ever worked in corporate world, even for a little bit, you've been through this BS before, right? Like this has happened to you. And usually what happens is nothing. The new guy is the same as the old guy, and nothing really usually changes. I don't want to like, I'm sorry to be so Debbie Downer. I'm just trying to be realistic here. And that's what usually happens. So again, I take this, all of this stuff with a boatload of skepticism. Yeah, Cosmic says day one it was obvious. Exactly. They were pushing for generic gameplay that would work in an MMO and forgot that many people play for the immersion and for the game to make sense. Yeah, and there were problems with it, too. I think they lost people. It's really, I don't know what happened at the very beginning. I wasn't covering games at that point, Cosmic or anybody else who's, interested in this. But it is interesting. Pre-launch, they had people that were on stage talking about what the game was going to be, and then some of those people left. And I think the best talent left, to be honest with you. And so then what became of the game was something different, for whatever reason. Volspa says, deadass, they just thought the idea was cool, ignored all the warnings that this would break the game. It breaks the game. 3 updates with no changes. Your feedback is valuable. Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing is as Volspa points out here very eloquently, 3 updates with no changes, and then they tell us our feedback is valuable. Even if we assume the very best of them, which I'd like to generally do, it took them 9 months to realize what we all knew, as Cosmic pointed out, on day one of the launch. And really, they should have known beforehand. We knew beforehand. 9 months. Again, the taking out the trash analogy. Like, if I'm going to take out the trash, but it's after the trash cans came, did I really do what was requested of me? I don't really think so. Luckily, my wife is forgiving, but I'm not so forgiving of a game company that I'm paying money to. Yeah. Cosmic says, yeah, and it makes it feel like they don't care about the actual IP. Yeah. Anyways, I'm trying not to rant, guys. I'm trying to keep it productive. There's plenty to go off on. Okay, so cool. So some interesting thing. What causes this person to become a Dragon Knight Arcanist Sorcerer? What are their motivations? Where do they get their power from? The answer to these questions help inform the way their abilities are developed as an extension of their source of power. So I just want to point out that we will see if they follow through with this. I would bet a lot of money that they don't. I will also point out that their source of power, this whole idea is kind of garbage, to be totally honest with you. And the reason I say that is because when one of the things we've often said, and we've said it for years, maybe they didn't get this in the most recent feedback, but many of us, if I'm a Dragon Knight, I'm all about fire. It's always a fire themed dragon for those of us who are used to other kinds of dragons. Fire is a big part of the theme. Why don't I do more damage to ice-based creatures? If you're on a warden and you're doing ice damage, why don't you do more damage to fire-based creatures? Really, it doesn't matter, right? Like, none of this stuff really matters. It's people want to make an elementalist right now, and you can't really do it. It doesn't really work. I mean, you can, and it's okay, but it's not very good gameplay, and it's not very fun. It's hard to do, and it's very confusing and disjointed. Why isn't that the case? Why can't, you do more damage to the ice dragon if you're doing fire, and fire damage to the, and vice versa, right? In Sunspire. And why couldn't there be other places where bosses and mobs were vulnerable to a type of damage? That makes me feel like, oh, I'm an ice mage. And yeah, I go up against the fire guy and I'm an ice mage. I can do, or I'm an elementalist. Okay, cool. This guy is, they're fire based. I'm not going to use fire against them. I'll use my other abilities. It's not going to do extra damage. So, like, just right off the bat, the idea of the flavor actually mattering is just not true. It's not true in ESO. It hasn't been true. We've given them that feedback before. They've never listened. Why would they listen now? I don't think they. And again, to point to competency and issues with competency, we've said this all before. This is old news. Now, I don't expect this to be old news to necessarily many of the people listening, many of you guys. I bet it is to a lot of you. But because you're watching a live stream on, talking about this stuff, so you're probably more knowledgeable than the average player. But for the average player, they might not realize this, but that is the case. That's what's going on. Let me see what we got here. Hey, Abel, what's going on? Abel Repose says the whole game is everybody invested in Magicka. All wearing the same armor set, playing ranged DPS while being forced into melee range. It's actually really sad. I won't dive into that. I just wanted to read out for everybody. I'm surprised they didn't buff the classes so you at least see a split. Some people staying class locked. Yeah. Well, in Cosmic, the some people staying with a particular class, that's what's happened, right? Before, everybody expected, Elder Scrolls is what they expected. And they got the online version, which was not Elder Scrolls. And so there was a lot of frustration with that. And they kind of made some changes. They made the game better in general. But now it's been 12 years almost of Elder Scrolls Online. And there's a bunch of people that never played any of the other games. And even if they did, a lot of us are just used to Elder Scrolls Online because that's what we played most recently. And now they're changing it. That's what they did, 8-9 months ago, is they changed that. And so that has, pissed off all those people. And now they're changing it again. It just doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Bro, actually, good point. Wait, this might be something else. Add more abilities for people that stay with their classes or something. Make it balanced. Yeah, I believe meant DPS. Yeah, bro. Actually, good point. Like, what is even the point of elemental resistance if it in the advanced settings? Yeah. Luna says I had much better class, and Voss Boss, there being elemental resistances in the advanced settings, as was pointed out to me by a couple of people. I talked briefly to the person who sent me this. Was like, hey, do you see this? And I was like, oh shit, no, I hadn't. It seems like there is some background coding, and there is some stuff where they're a little bit more geared. Like maybe they could have gone, and maybe there's some code already in place for elemental types. I don't know how extensive it is. I don't trust them at all to implement it and it not be a train wreck, but in theory it might exist. So I don't know. Luna says I had a much better class fantasy and concept after subclassing than before. Yeah, but Luna, a lot of people fell in love with the thing they had, and so they liked that. But I'm with you. I don't really care either way. Class identity was never a thing for me in this game. Yeah, a bunch of classes had lame identities that didn't work before subclasses. Yeah, I thought the class identities as they existed before subclassing were pretty weak. With many, some of them were really good and were really well themed, and many of them didn't make sense. Like, why does the warden? Why does ice magic part of the warden toolkit? That didn't make sense to me at all. Necro, I could see that. We often have ice in fantasy and other genres and stories being associated with necros. Why did it have anything? Why is the warden the ranger or druidic type character? Why is 1/3 of their thing ice? I never really understood that. It seemed very niche at best for that type of play. You could justify it, but it didn't make any sense to me, and never really has. Yeah, a lot of people sticking around waiting for ES7. Yeah. Elder Scrolls 7, dude. Cosmic though, it's going to be a train wreck. Zoss is, the developers have even commented on this stuff. They know it's going to disappoint everybody. and I've talked about this before. They're like, yeah, we can't possibly live up to everybody's expectations of it, which again is, I'll use the same analogy I used before. That's kind of like any expert in a field who's supposed to be the expert, right? Or like, I'll use an example of a fine chef, but it could be anything. It could be a fine woodworker, right? And they've made stuff that you liked before, and you're like, cool, well, I'd like you to make me something, now. And they're like, oh, you're going to be disappointed. I can't possibly live up to your expectations. I don't know any true artisan, anybody who truly has the skill to make something great, who would be like, "Oh, I can't possibly do that again." No, they're like, "Yeah, I'm going to do that again. Absolutely. I'm going to make you something even better. You're going to like it's going to be different, but it's going to be even better." Cuz and they're going to, kind of one up themselves, right? Like and for the developers to be like, "Oh, we can't they're saying the quiet part out loud, which is they got lucky, right? And they don't have the skill to be able to do something cool. I think anybody who had the skill has either left or has not listened to on a you know consistent basis, so they don't say anything anymore. What's the identity of wardens and sorcerer? None of these make sense to me. Yeah, yeah, exactly, Luna. Some of them are really weak. I don't want to get too bogged down in the details of specific classes, but generally speaking, I absolutely agree. Cosmic says, I think if they spent all the time, effort, and money on reworking the class, we would all have been happy with that. Yeah, maybe unpopular opinion, but I think subclassing as a whole was a huge mistake. No, I think other people feel that way, Cosmic. I think it was a great idea. I don't think it was a mistake. I think they implemented it so poorly that it did become a tragedy. I mean, that's how they said multiclassing is what they said essentially they were going to do when the game launched, and also multiclassing with with being able to make skills, right? Like that's what they said they were going to do at launch, which was very in keeping with the previous Elder Scrolls games, right? Being able to go to the Mage's build and craft your own spell, right? You could craft a spell that took literally your entire mana bar, but it like one-shotted anything. Obviously, they couldn't do all of that, but it was a funny, that was the flavor of Elder Scrolls before. Vossball says for wardens, I assume the reason why they have ice is because they wanted to associate them with the seasons, like spring and winter and animals. My favorite 3 seasons. yeah, spring, winter, and animals. My favorite 3 seasons. Again, Vossball, you have a great point. Like associated them with the seasons would have made sense. Yeah, but also the implementation is just like a head scratcher. Yeah. The meal is going to be underwhelming. Yeah, they've already told us that like we can't do it. Imagine the waiter telling you that as they telling you that the meal is underwhelming as they slap a plate on your table. Yeah, yep. Oh my gosh. All right. So source of power. Let's talk about power fantasy. Sorry, it's hard not to be a bit. Some of the stuff is just like so meme worthy. It's hard to take it seriously. And I will say, like, even if Zoss and the current people that are there that are in charge are turning over a new leaf, or they weren't the ones that were the problem, they should know that this is how most of the player base should feel and is going to feel, and so that's just part of the job. I don't feel bad for them. They should know that, and probably they don't, but they should. Okay, what do we mean by power fantasy? Power fantasy takes a source of power a step further. Oh, does it? And influences how a character receives and is then able to use it. Okay. For example, area of effect, damage over time, direct damage, etc. By taking their source of power and putting it into a delivery mechanism, we aim to create the sensation that it would feel like to be that class. Different power sources shape distinct playstyles. For example, Nightblades rely on cunning and shadow to stay elusive in battle, striking while the moment is right, while Templars draw on divine energy for more zealous and direct combat. These differences help set ESO's classes apart from one another in terms of their identity. It's why some classes have specific power delivery mechanisms that others do not, thus contributing to more distinct playstyle and establish a stronger class mix. Okay. More synergy too, like Wood Elf Warden Bow. And then Abel says, exactly, Cosmic. I just wanted a wood elf Legolas that didn't die every 20 minutes from switching to a staff. Yeah, that would be nice. Having an actual, yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Yeah, and half the DPS of every other build. Yeah, exactly. So here's an interesting thing. We just talked, and again, they've gotten the feedback that what players want when they're talking about power fantasy, they want it to actually take it a step further and influence how your character receives and is able to use it. Now, again, we've given them feedback historically that we want damage types. People want to play an elementalist. They want to be able to lead into a particular damage type. And what do we got? We got poison damage, we got disease damage, we have ice, we got fire, we've got lightning. I know Magicka is a type of damage. It's the dumbest thing in the world. All of these other types usually are magic. Not all of them, but most of them are magic, and you're constantly using magic. Magic shouldn't be its own damage type. It just doesn't make any sense, but whatever. They could change it, reflavor it. It would be fine. Call it something more different than putting a K in Magicka, and Magicka or a KA, whatever. There might be some more. Oh, there's also physical damage. So we got at least 7. So that is what we've asked for. And what they consider, though, to be the things that really add to the source of power is how the damage is done with area of effect versus direct damage versus damage over time. There's already a huge disconnect there, right? A massive disconnect with what players have said they wanted and the way the developers are thinking about it. And this tells me that they're working within the frame that they already have constructed, which is the easiest thing to do. But it also tells me that's probably going to disappoint because they're not thinking about these things as the players think about them. This is also going to be a huge issue to balance. If you have some people that do area of effect damage and that's their thing, that's versus direct damage versus damage over time versus single target damage. They don't put single target, but they have etc. And area effect, the opposite of that would be single target. This is already an issue. If you have, the Arcanist beam, you've got a beam that does a ton. No, they're not getting rid of subclassing. Supposedly they're going to fix it. We shall see. So you have the Arcanist beam, and it does maybe it does a little bit less damage than direct damage, single target damage. It's so easy to use, and it's so good in so many situations that it's like, why would I want to use anything else? Why, if you have the beam available, why would you use anything else? There's no reason to. And so how are they going to balance a single target, like a class that is more focused on single target, unless they're going to bump up the damage that much more than they have already? I don't think they're going to do that. And if they do, it's just a weird, if they make it where the single target does more damage that people actually want to go with the single target thing, you're just going to choose one or the other for the most part. It's just weird. This is going to be a nightmare to balance. They're setting themselves up to have a horrible time balancing this. And again, based on what we know and our experience with ZOS before, chances are not going to go great, right? Nani asks if they're going to get rid of subclassing. They're not getting rid of it. They're actually supposedly maybe going to try to fix it. Nani is the thought here. They got the right idea here. Just confusing why they didn't see this from the beginning. Yeah. So Mark, or a Cosmic, I'm sorry. I started calling it Cosmic. The thing is that Rich was in charge last year when the other stuff came in, and now there's a new creative director. The creative director is the person who decides all the stuff that we care about as gamers. So that person is actually there's usually a person above them, and then there's a couple of people, and one of them is game director, and they're responsible for all the creative stuff, the stuff that we care about as gamers. And then there's other stuff that we typically don't care about, but is also an important part of the company, right? So there's a new person for creative director, and the person above him, those people have also gone. Rich, the creative director, is still at the company, but he's no longer the creative director. Somebody else has moved up into the position. Okay, so the reason they didn't do it before is because it was a different person's vision. So that's a little bit of what's going on. Yeah, so new vision. Yeah, exactly. And they promoted that person from within. Yeah. I would have thought at some point, Voswell says, that they would place the 10% damage penalty on AoE versus single target, like they did with ranged versus melee. And then Cosmic says exactly, the meta is too obvious and top heavy. Yeah. There is the build, and then there's everything else. Need more exploits and possibilities. Yeah. More options, I think, is more what Cosmic means there. Chicken says it's just going to be bland. They're going to separate class skills for tank, heal, DPS. Then maybe sets will work better for elements for class. Yeah, we'll have to see. Anyways, different power sources shape distinct play styles. So I don't know how area of effect and, again, damage over time and direct damage somehow relates to your power source. Again, there's just a huge disconnect for me there. And I don't know how they don't see that and why they don't think that's a problem. But whatever. For example, Nightblades rely on cunning and shadow to stay elusive in battle, striking while the moment is right, while Templars draw on divine energy for more zealous and direct combat. Again, so if we want to talk about another game, let's talk about WoW, right? So World of Warcraft, back in the day, my experience with WoW is very dated at this point, guys. Back in the day, you could have a dodge tank, right? It was traditionally it's a druid class? Was it a druid? I think it was a druid, where you could shape change, right? And so your bear form was your tank form, and you could dodge a lot of attacks. So you didn't have a lot of damage mitigation, but you would, as far as I'm getting hit a lot and I'm reducing the damage of everything I take. No, a lot of attacks would miss you, and then some would hit you, but you would take a bunch of damage. So you had to have a bunch of health, and your health would yo-yo. It did, depending on when you played exactly. A lot of people didn't like healing druids because they would panic because their health would yo-yo all the time. But that's how they dealt with this. Elder Scrolls Online has no way of dealing with this, shadow and being shadowy and elusive in combat outside of PvP. Sure, it has that in PvP, but there's nothing like that in PvE. So I don't know how that's supposed to work. They don't have any mechanics in the game currently that they could change or utilize to make this make sense. And I don't imagine they're going to start adding new ones on top of all the other stuff that they're saying they're going to do here. So again, a lot of this stuff just seems DOA to me. And then striking when the moment is right. It's like, okay, are they going to be returned to the execute class again? That's one way they did it. It's fine. It's not incredibly engaging. Having to switch what you're doing during execute, for your spam bull, this is fine for PvP and makes no sense for PvE. Is generally my take. Templars are drawn to divine energy for more zealous and direct combat. Again, what are they saying? Direct damage here? This is pretty uninspired stuff to me. That's my take. It's pretty uninspired. All right. Yeah. Adapting around player experiences. Oh God, this is going to be hilarious. Chicken said, yeah, it's just going to be bland. They're going to set up. Yeah, exactly. It's just going to be bland. Oh no, you're good, Cosmic. Oh, you're good. I try not to. I try to autocorrect for everybody, but sometimes because I'm doing multiple things, I'm like, wait, what are they trying to say? Volspa says there's a single skill in the Nightblade skill book that triggers invisibility, and it is not used by DPS tanks nor healers. I believe it's this is what's called roleplay copium. I didn't know there's a name for it, Voss, but it sounds like it. Cool. What's up, Mick? Or they could just balance the damage of the abilities and sets. What the fuck do they? What the fuck do they hate money? Yeah, it feels like they do hate money sometimes. But there's some rule or something or law or whatever that and one of the things I've learned to try to do or maybe not do over time is don't assign malicious intent when incompetence will explain everything. Like, I think that's what sometimes people do. They read developer comments and they assign malicious intent when, like, really it's just incompetence. So, I try not to do that. Uninspired. That is it. That is the heart of it all. Yeah. So, adapting around player experiences. While it's always important to have a class's visions and goals in mind, it's just as important to ensure that they hold up after the community adapts to new tools and features. As new systems and improvements are introduced, development becomes an ongoing process that requires continual refining. For example, one of the biggest pieces of continuing or community feedback that we're looking into is how subclassing interacts with class identity and game balance. Subclassing at its core directly competes with our established version of class identity and instead puts that agency into your hands, giving you the ability to create anything you want. While this is a deeply important part of the feature for us, it also currently comes with some drawbacks for balance. Okay. Man, I don't know if I should keep reading or should I read in bigger chunks, guys? Let me know. Somebody or keep doing what I'm doing. So like some of what they're saying, I feel like they're talking out of both sides of their mouth, right? Like they're saying two things. So they're going to tell us in a minute that they're going to do this on an ongoing basis, and that they're also going to, though, like, as new systems and improvements are introduced, development becomes an ongoing process, requires continual refining. Yeah, they're basically saying that they're always going to be in a state of changing shit. And I like, to some extent that's okay, but 99% of the community is tired of them changing stuff. They want them to, like, have done it and send it out. That's what we want. And I get that this is too big of a task and, like, there's too many problems. Like, they got to do something now. This is just going to drag on, and it's going to be a problem for years to come is what's going to happen. And they've already, if they listen to feedback on a class and they get feedback for this class, it's probably going to end up clashing with feedback they got from another class. And what about 2 classes from now, which could be, or 3 classes from now, which could be separated because they're going to go class by class? What if it's separated by a year? So much could change in a year. And what they did, like the class they did at first is going to get left behind 3 classes on. And it's just going to be an ongoing cycle of this being a problem. This is not a good way of dealing with this. Yeah. Oh my gosh. All right. Let me see here. Templars are the channeling class, not to be confused with Arcanists, which are the beam class. But the Arcanists also aren't a beam class, because if you use the shurikens that they stole from Genji, that they stole from Overwatch, then that's also the best, it's the best single target damage, so it doesn't make any sense. Make plan channeling feel good and rewarding instead of extending them to 5 seconds. Cosmic says, I think they don't know what to do. It's systemic. Their own game's at war with itself. Yeah. I think that they sat down and maybe they did this over the past 9 months. I don't know. And spent some time thinking about this, and this is what they came up with. And I think it is a little bit of, well, I don't know if it's like designed by committee and without any kind of overarching goal, but a lot of this stuff doesn't make sense internally. Their logic internally doesn't make sense to me. Boss says, I feel like a lot of things they are saying would have been an issue if they still had goodwill in reserve. Imagine this kind of message for like update 38 or 42. Yeah. Yep. The whole game is having an identity crisis. Yeah. All right. You guys didn't tell me if I should keep reading more. I think I'm going to read in larger blocks. Okay. As it stands, subclassing is objectively stronger than pure classing classing by a large margin for several reasons. This is mostly caused by the vast differences in individual skill line design. ESO was not built for launch with subclassing in mind. That's bullshit. It was originally, the idea as it was sold to us before the game coming out was that there was actually going to be something even more involved than subclassing. Now, I know what got launched didn't have subclassing in it, And so somewhere along the way, they changed their mind or something. But this is also like kind of BS. I don't think this person is intentionally lying. I think they're just ignorant, to be totally honest with you. And this is something that whoever wrote this shouldn't probably be ignorant of that fact. Actually, not whoever wrote this. The team of people that looked at this, and someone from that team should have been like, hey guys, that's not correct. Maybe we shouldn't, and again, maybe we shouldn't unintentionally lie to our audience. Maybe that would help engender some goodwill. And the system highlighted issues with the current class skill line design that were not previously a factor, but are untenable going forward. Okay. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. I think we all know that. We've all been feeling that. And we all knew that before it all launched. But again, we'll blame Rich, right? We'll blame Rich Lambert, who's still at the company. Just to be clear, still at the company. To support the overall health of the game and class system, we need to respond and adapt to how the game has changed based on how players are using the subclassing feed. Can I just, as an aside, something that keeps happening with game developers is that a lot of like the unsuccessful ones or the middlingly successful ones, some that like they were on really big games, but like they also made huge mistakes and like caused a lot of problems. A lot of them are becoming YouTubers now, and people seem to love that kind of content. I think I'm sure there's some great ones out there, but some of it is absolutely hilarious. It's kind of like people just failing upwards. And it's like, oh, they were a game developer for like 25 years. And they're like, yeah, they weren't that great of a game developer for 25 years. I don't know if I would listen to them, but what the hell do I know? Anyways, I think it's funny. And I can't wait to see more people that I know of become like YouTubers. I can't wait for, I don't want to hate on certain people, but like, I can't wait for Rich to go on his YouTube arc. I hope that happens. Oh my gosh. All right. To support the overall health of the game and class system, we need to respond and adapt to how the game has changed based on how players are using the subclassing feature. This is just like corporate BS speak, but sure. Well, with this in-game data and player feedback and available development resources in place, we have a clearer picture of the scope of changes that need to be made. Dude, they've always had a clearer picture of the changes that need to be made, and they've never listened. So why would they listen now? That's just my take. Bro, did they just admit subclassing was a mistake? I mean, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, not really. Well, whatever. I mean, nothing that strikes me as incredibly important, boss. Yeah. Read more, or I will keep enabling you to tangent because I like listening to you yap. Okay. Bows need a complete rework. Mick says New World makes ESO look bad in this regard. Yeah. Man, my Bobo Warden hasn't been dusted off in a while. I don't think it's horrible right now. I just think that there's not really a synergy with the Warden class very much. Not like it used to be. Frost Wardens are even more worse. Worser? They're worser. Appreciate what you do for the culture, and I'm glad I caught you live. Got to hear. Hey, I appreciate it, Cosmic. I appreciate it, man. Thanks. And, we'll catch you later if you got to dip out. I'm glad you're here too. So as it stands, okay, cool. We went through all that. To support the overall health of the game and class system, we need to respond and adapt to how the game. This is just like corporate BS. Changes based on how players. Blah blah blah. I'm sorry when I see corporate BS, guys, I just hear peanuts. I just read peanuts. It's womp 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 womp. Cool. These insights have led us to re-examine our class identity. Here's how they're expressed and designed for the individual class abilities and passives, where those abilities are sourced, and how they all come together to create a cohesive class identity. One overreaching pattern you'll see. So I just want to say that we've already gone over how their thought on class identity and how they're going to do that already seems to not make any sense to me. Based on their own guidelines, not based on mine, based on their own guidelines, I don't think it makes sense. And it also tells me that they might be listening, but they don't understand player feedback. Or the other option, and this has long been the case actually, when Rich was creative director, they would listen, and then they would decide to do the easiest thing possible, not the best thing or the most correct thing. And again, The problem with transparency is like I could show you video of Rich and Finn, you know, the dungeon guy that designs all the PvE enemies, dungeons and instance kind of combat stuff. I think world bosses, pretty much anything you fight in the game, and also the creative director saying that like, yeah, they did that with Infinite Archive. They chose the easy thing to do, not the best thing for the game, and they went out doing a PR thing, and they said they told us that. Transparency is good, but if you're not a great company and you're not doing good things, it's going to backfire on you. I think we should still have it because I think we need these criticisms, and the people that don't know what they're doing should be put in a position where they can't control the games that they're in control of, and we should be able to give them that feedback. And so I think it's good, but they're not going to like it because if you're not good at your job. Again, let's use restaurant analogy. Having an open kitchen. Open kitchens, I don't know what the current trend is, but for a while it was very in vogue, and a lot of them still do it. If you're a fine dining restaurant or you're a very like professional kitchen, having an open kitchen is great. It's so cool. People can see it. They can see what you're doing. They can see their food being cooked. They can see how hard everybody's working. It looks amazing. You got flames coming up. It's amazing, right? But it's also hard. Everybody can see everything. If you got one person on your team who's like wiping their nose and then touching your food, right? Like that looks horrible. If you have people that don't know what they're doing, dropping food or look like they're panicked, that's not good, right? So transparency is good, but if you're not a good company, if you're not running a well-run business, it's bad. It's going to be bad for you. And I think that's a little bit what Zoss is going to run into here with this. And again, maybe maybe they came to Jesus. Maybe they're turning over a totally new leaf. I'd love to believe that. I'm not that young and I'm not that naive to believe it. All right. These insights have led us to re-examine our class identities, how they're expressing. Okay, cool. One overreaching pattern you'll see. Okay. As we move forward, improving this experience is reorganizing class skill lines, adding in more benefits for sticking with the core skill lines of your class, and decentralizing role-specific power so that a single skill line won't have every tool you need to achieve your goals. Okay, we got to talk about this. This is huge, and we got to talk about this, okay? So one overarching pattern that we will see, okay? They're going to reorganize the skill lines, and they're going to be adding in more benefits for sticking with the core skill lines of your class. This is what every casual gamer has suggested as the solution to this problem, and I don't think it is a bad one on its face. So there's got to be some synergy where if you stay with a class skill line, you get some benefits. As we've already gone over, one of the smaller issues, it's not a huge issue, one of the smaller issues with this is that a lot of the classes don't have a very good identity. Like now they do for the people that only play ESO and have only played ESO for a long time. They're like, oh yeah, this warden makes sense. The warden has become an object to them, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, and I think that's great for those people. A lot of us, though, play a lot of different things and have a lot of different ideas. Like, we watch fantasy movies. We watch the D&D movie, Lord of the Rings, like, whatever it happens to be, all this different stuff. We read books. We, Brandon Sanderson's The Cosmere. So we have all these different ideas of like what the flavor of something should be. And if you have those ideas from like traditional, nerd culture on like what a warden, which is essentially another name for a druid, is, ice doesn't make sense. As I mentioned before, I don't know, let's pick something else. What else do we have? Dragon Knight's not bad. Necros that heal, that doesn't make any sense. Just as another example, like it doesn't make any sense at all. And there are a decent number of other things where you're just kind of like, I'm scratching my head. The Templar's ability to use bodies to gain power, like a Necro, like that's weird. That doesn't make any sense. So there's just stuff that doesn't really fit into this. So it's a little bit of a head scratcher, and I think it's going to be a problem for people. Okay. And the decentralized role-specific power to that a single skill line. So let's talk about this. Is probably the biggest thing and probably what I should have led with before everything else. And I'm going to catch up on comments because I think I have a lot to say on this, and I want to be caught up on the comments before I do. All right. Vospa says, bro. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. We already caught that one. I'm a little bit behind. I'm trying to keep track of where the chat is. I appreciate, no, oh my gosh. More dots. I thought I had the place marked, guys. I thought I was doing a good job, and I was doing a poor job. More dots. That's the solution. Oh my gosh. What up, Crude Red? Red, good to see you. I think this is just a panic reaction, and nothing good will come of it because this is desperation. Interesting. I do like what multiclassing did for my healer. Yeah. Don't see necros. No see necros. Don't heal. They just reverse death slightly, like rewinding an old film. There you go. There you go. All right. I just didn't understand the flavor of them then. All right. So the last class that came out, guys, was the Arcanist. We all know this. I'm building something up here. And what did they do with the Arcanist? They made one skill line for DPS. They made another skill line for tank, and they made another skill line for healing, right? And they went hard into that. And you can do good DPS with literally just one Arcanist skill line, nothing else. You can tank with one Arcanist skill line, nothing else, and you can heal with one Arcanist skill line, nothing else. That is the last thing they did. And this is the ship turning because the new creative director. Now they're saying that was a mistake, that was wrong. They're not throwing Rich under the bus, but that is what they're saying. So now they're saying, no, each skill line should have, it sounds like, some tanking, some healing, some DPS, right? Now, this is one way to do this. The other way to do it is what they did with the Arcanist, okay? Each skill line does one thing, and that's what it does. I wasn't even sure when I talked about this before, but like, I don't even know what advice to give because I don't know which of these two directions they're going. And they could probably go a third or fourth or fifth, but those are the two main ones and the two, like, two things that seem like they made the most sense. They were most obvious and also seem like they made a lot of sense. You could pick one of these two. I had basically convinced myself that what they are suggesting they're going to do, I had basically convinced myself that they were not going to do that. And the reason I thought to myself, you know what, they're almost certainly not going to do that. I kind of convinced myself of this. The reason for that is because in the 12-year history of ZOS, how often have the classes been balanced? Guys, throw out some percentages. What do you think? Tell me what you think. It doesn't have to be super accurate. Tell me what you think. Put it in comment, please. In the 12 years, almost 12 years that ESO has been out, what percentage of the time have the 7 class? I know there weren't 7 the whole time, but how often have they been balanced? I would say far less than 50%. Okay, probably way less than that, but at least less than 50%. Have the classes been balanced against one another? Okay, and let's just assume, for sake of argument, let's call it 7. Okay. Just say that I know the Arcanist didn't always exist, neither did the Warden, etc. Let's just say they always did. If they couldn't, like in relation to each other, yes, Voss, yeah, probably like 30%, right? If they can't or they couldn't balance 7 distinct objects with each other, and now they're saying they're going to make each skill line with something for each class, which I don't know if they're putting that fine of a point on it, but I do feel like that's what they're saying. How in the world do they expect to be able to balance 21 class skill lines, all the combinations? Okay, so if you want to know how to do the math for this, guys, this is combinatorics, and what you would do, you're trying to figure out what combination of 21 objects, those are the skill lines, where you can pick 3 of them, and the order doesn't matter, okay? This is combinations. That's what, if you're looking for the math word, like this is what combinations are. So 21, choose 3. Oh, not 2, choose 3. So we had 7 options, okay? It's going to be like 1,300. Yeah, 1,330, okay? So they couldn't balance 7 things. Now they expect to balance 1,330 things. How do they expect to do that? I think there's no fucking way. Just to be honest, I just think there's no way that they can possibly do this. right? And when we had multi-classing, you had essentially 7 choose 3. Okay. You have 7 total. You have 1 DPS skill line essentially from each. It's not exactly, but just go with me. Even then, they only had 35 options. Okay. And now they're going to go to like 1,300. Now games will do this. They will have this many combinations. Oftentimes, what are called games like Diablo, right? Action RPGs is usually the genre. Diablo, Path of Exile. Oh man, there's a bunch of other ones. I'm trying to think of some names. You guys know these action RPGs. Depending on what game it is, right? Oftentimes they will have even more than this. They'll have massive, massive numbers. But those games aren't PvP. And those games often, there's a lot of differences. Not PvP. They often operate in seasons where like they do something, the players find the broken stuff and it'll be completely broken. They play for a season and then the game, the new set of rules comes out where they change things. They fix this problem. They nerf the hell out of this. But they change something else. And the fun for the players is figuring out how to break the game. Okay. ESO is not that game. I don't know of any MMO that does this. Does anybody know of an MMO that does this? Like, drop some science on me if I'm wrong. I just don't think that there's any way they're going to be able to balance this. And that's why I had convinced myself that there's no way that they would try to do this because it seems insane. The other way, they would only have 35 things to choose from. That's more than enough combinations to make things interesting, but not enough. And I will also say with multi-classing having come out, and also with scribing coming out, the game for the average player, which is very casual, okay, is already too complicated. And for me currently, and for most of you guys, I know because you've told me, the game is too complicated. Just too damn complicated. And I just want to be able to play and have fun. And I love the math and the numbers and everything else. And it's just like, dude, I don't want to be doing a spreadsheet every time I'm trying to like load up a character. And so I think this is a huge problem. And they're not good enough at game design to be able to make it where you can. So what you ideally want is you want players to look at something and be like, oh, again, I'll use the elementalist, right? Oh, I want to make an elementalist, or I want to make a vampire character. Oh, I want to make a bow. I want to make an archer. Yeah, that sounds really fun. Maybe a couple different flavors. Like you could have an arcane archer that uses spells, or you could have a woodsman, like a ranger, whatever. And what you want is players to pick this fantasy and then be able to make a build that pick things that make sense. And then what you want in good game design, okay, which not even trying to throw shade, but ESO is so far from this. What you want in good game design is you want the player that says, hey, I want the Bobo Ranger character. Yeah, I'm going to lean into that. I'm going to go hard into it. Cool. And they pick the stuff that is thematic for them. And it's easy to make that character because you go, oh, yeah, that's thematic. Oh, yeah, that's thematic. Oh, yeah, and 90% of your character is done, maybe even 100%, just by picking things that are thematic. And then you want another player. Again, no theory crafting, no number crunching, no parsing, no anything to go, I want to make an elementalist. Oh, how do I do that? Oh, there's an ice skill line. I'm grabbing that skill line. That's cool. Oh, sorcerer. They've got the lightning skill line. I'm grabbing that. Okay, I got to grab a third one. Oh, you know what? Dragon Knight. Fire. Yeah, we got ice. We got fire. It's a fire and ice kind of thing. You know what? Maybe I could just go with just fire and ice. Maybe I'll lean into that instead. Or they go, oh, okay, I'll keep these two and I'll grab that lightning. Cool. That's really cool. Or they go, hey, you know what? Fire and ice and lightning. Nah, I want even more, and they grab whatever they can. They make their elementalist build. What you want is these two examples of players through no theory crafting to be able to make a build that makes thematic sense for them. And then when you check their DPS, assuming they're both at the same skill level, it's the exact same damage. That's what you want. Now, is it ever going to be exact? Probably not. You can get really fucking close though. That's what you want. Okay. ESO, ZOS is never going to be able to do that. They don't have they're not going to spend the time and the resources. I'm going to assume that the people there are more than capable. They have some very smart people, I know. I'm going to assume they're more than capable. they're never going to spend the time and the resources, and they do have to find the right people because some of them have proven to be fairly incompetent over the years. But I'm assuming the low-level people are probably pretty solid, okay? Giving the benefit of the doubt if nothing else. That's what you want to happen. ESO is never like it's just not going to happen. And so this idea again that they're gonna come up with 1300 and some change options and get anything close to something that's balanced. And remember, they regard this as a iterative process. Okay, so shit, guys, it's been okay. It took them 10 years to put the thing they said before launch they were going to put in the game. Okay, then they launched a thing. I love subclassing, guys. I've told you that before. I like it. I think it's cool. I love it. I think it's great for the game. No, I don't know if I would say overall it's great for the game, but it's great for me for the game, okay? I love it. So just know that's my bias. I love it. They expect they're having problems balancing this, and they expect to be able to balance it against all those other things. And then they said it's an iterative process. It's going to take time. They're going to do one class at a time. By the time they start at one class, by the time they get to the third or fourth class, things have changed so much. Guys, whenever you're designing a game, and you could ask game developers, they'll tell you this. Whenever you're designing a game, the idea you have at the beginning is not the idea you launch with. And by the time you launch a finished product, we're sending it out the door, guys. We've been working on this for years. And this includes tabletop games and everything else. Sending it out the door, you already have a better idea of how you would do it. Okay? You're already ready for the second edition by the time you send out the first edition. Okay? But if you change all those things, you got to change one thing, you got to change 1,000 things. ZOS is telling us that they are going to be iterating on these skill lines for the rest of eternity. They might as well. Now, what might happen is at some point they just give up, they throw in the towel, and they stop. But this is a wild way to do it. The reason I had convinced myself that this is not what they were going to do, and I'll jump into these comments here in a second. I know some of them probably won't make sense because they'll be after the fact. You're responding to something I was saying right at the moment. I apologize. But the reason I had convinced myself that if they at least did, this is a healing skill line, this is a tanking skill line, this is a DPS skill line, they would at least have a manageable number of combinations. And again, the player base does not want to have to go through 1,300 combinations. Some of us really sweaty nerds that we're going to geek out on this stuff. It's going to have a lot of fun. Also, for me as a content creator, guys, infinite content. Thank you, ZOS. Like, they just gave me a present. I appreciate it, right? But it's not good for the average player. And that's what I actually care about. And so, so I don't, head scratcher to me. I don't understand. I don't know why, but I generally think this is a terrible idea. Yeah, that's it. All right, let's catch up with these comments. I'm yelling. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go hoarse. I want to hell dive after this. We got a new war bond, and I'm gonna be hoarse. But guys, can you imagine? You know, people did like the Obama's anger like translator and other people's anger translator. Can you imagine my anger translator? It'd be like what is that Disney movie where like everybody is an emotion? You're like in somebody, a child's like, inside their body, and you're their emotions. Can you imagine? It would just be flames all the time with the angry guy. Voss Boss should do ESO specific stand up. Voss Boss, these are hilarious. Voss Boss says Rich wasn't wrong, just all his ideas. Oh God. Oh man. Hey, also too, like, just because someone's not amazing at their job doesn't mean they're a bad person. And so it's not about we're attacking generally the ideas here. It's funny, but it is true, right? It's not the person isn't bad, just all their ideas are, right? Crude Red says they painted themselves into a corner, and now other games are catering to their shortfalls. Yeah, what's going to happen, and has already been happening over time, and I'm sure we're all fairly aware of this because I know a lot of people that are waiting for the next game. and they're going to leave. And a lot of people have found some of those other games and they've already left. And they're just over it. And that's going to continue to happen. And I think the great tragedy of ESO is, and for all of us who have been playing it too for a long time and care about the Elder Scrolls in general, is that it could be and it could have been historically so amazing, and it's just it's like watching a Jets game, right? It's just like you could do so good, you were right there, and then just like failing, and you're just like self owning, just like hurting yourself for no reason. And that's what's such a bummer about it. And that's why we care. That's why we talk about it. That's why I'm here, doing all this stuff, is because I do care. Right. And so it's just like, oh, God. uh, I think this is just retention PR. Crude, I don't think so, man. It could read that way, and they absolutely have done that before. But I don't think they are. I think this is the creative director. So there is hope here. I think this is the creative director trying to turn things around and move things in a more reasonable direction. And a lot of the if you're just like, hey, he's trying to turn it around and vaguely we need to address these things, that's good. The macro plan actually sounds really solid. The issue is, and this again is a very business, this applies to all businesses and pretty much all things. You can have the best idea and execute on it so poorly that it doesn't work. And I used to see this all the time when I did consulting in businesses, is that that's what they would do. And what people decide is that the idea was bad. And it's like, no, the idea is good. You just guys executed on it so friggin' poorly that it didn't work. And so whenever I look at the details of all this and their ideas, I go, this is not going to work. I hope I'm wrong, but it's a very valid, because they have done that, and this can absolutely be read like that. But my opinion is I don't think it is. I don't think you're wrong for thinking that, but in my opinion, I don't think that's what this is. Maybe the idea is to like model the skill lines first, then adjust later. Like Winter's Revenge and Stormcalling are good examples of class lines with a good mix of offensive, defensive, and support. I'm not, you'll have to follow up on that. Maybe you did later, Voss Boss, but I'm not quite sure I'm following with like what exactly you're thinking with that. Cosmic says, let the game be chaos for 6 months, adjust as they go. Yeah, except for Cosmic, we're talking about literal years worth of content. Like, they're going to say that they're going to, later on, I don't think they've said it yet, they're going to do this in order, and they're going to start with like the worst class. I don't know if they're going to, what if they do that every quarter? They adjust a class. That means we have almost 2 years worth of them adjusting things. That's wild, right? And honestly, they've left themselves room saying we'll adjust the deadlines, which it'll probably take longer. Everything always takes longer than you'd think. Oh, okay. So likely they're going to move some skills around and change some passives, then raise or lower numbers based on performance, maybe. Yeah, something like that. I think they're going to redesign some of them, would be my guess. I get the impression that they're kind of taking a little bit more of a step back. And I honestly think they're going to redesign the classes, is what it sounds like to me. Which, again, we already got a new game that people were pissed off that they redid the game. They redid the combat with multi-classing. That's what they did. And it pissed a bunch of people off. Some of us came back for it. Some of us were happy with it. But I think they're going to do that again. And again, it's a new creative director. I want to give these guys a chance to do something cool, but like they got to stop with this shit. Most people don't want, like, it's exhausting for the game to constantly be changing like this. They'll literally swap skills around between classes. God, that would be hilarious. I hope not. Robo Deltia as a class consultant. Oh my goodness. It gets tiresome after a while. Yeah. And it takes all the grind and just no fun enjoying the game. Yeah. Watching Knight try to theorycraft new updates is a stress simulator. Hey man, I want to make a where we'll get shot. Boss says. Oh my gosh. Abel says, realistically, who has the time? Most of us just want to have fun while being rewarded for our efforts. Absolutely, Abel. Absolutely. Yeah, which is why in good game design, you pick the thing that's fun and it's thematic, and good game design just leads you into making a good character. But that's really hard to do from a game design standpoint. So we need legacy servers, Crude says. Cosmic says, and then the more skilled players get the advantage by studying synergy and passive gear, etc. Yeah. Daedric Pop-Off King. Hey, I appreciate it, man. Paid for by big subclass trademark. Your anger translator would get your channel struck down. I think so. I think so. I know we're way behind. I just like reading all the comments. Um, this is one time where having a spreadsheet calcs would actually be helpful for balancing. Having baseline values for all the important metrics, then tweak an extra value, skills, passives, etc. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. All right, Abel's about hell diving. Sweet, cool. I left already, unfortunately. Yeah, yeah, I understand. I just play the Skyrim soundtrack and use my imagination. Oh my god, that's amazing. Hey, speaking of using your imagination and playing the soundtrack, soundtrack, guys, FYI in the Discord, I just made a post earlier today for those of you who aren't in the Discord or haven't seen. I'm combining. I had started, and honestly, it's been dormant for a long time, a tabletop channel for covering tabletop role playing games and also board games. I'm just going to bring all that content over on a Night Horror Gaming, and this is going to be all together. And I also had a Discord for that. So we actually have a game coming up, and I'm taking the first 5 people, and we already have 2 of the spots taken, who want to play. We're doing a Kobolds Ate My Baby, which is a particular ultralight TTRPG this Friday, 6 to 8-ish. If anybody's interested, Mountain Time. So that's 8 to 10 Eastern. And if you want to come play, this is the first of what will be many. I think it'll be a fairly weekly thing where I run some TTRPGs. Hopefully other people will join as well, and we'll run some and what have you. But if you're interested in using your imagination more, come join. I don't know that I'm going to stream that this week or in general. And the reason for that is because I'm really interested in, I want people to have a fun, enjoyable time. And being streamed to YouTube and that being up on the internet forever, or Twitch or whatever, I just don't necessarily want to put people in that position because TTRPGs aren't like streaming a trial. It's a different thing. You're interacting totally different, and I just want people to make sure they have fun. But if you do want to see what's going on, you can come to the Discord, and I think I'll have the channel open where you won't be able to talk if you're not part of the group, but you can listen in if nothing else. And if you're interested, X up, and you don't need to do anything. You don't need to, like, this one is ultralight, so like you just got to show up basically. I'll have people pick classes, but each class has like one ability. So if you're interested, check it out in the Discord. There's new tags, so you can grab your tag if you haven't already. So just as an FYI. Yeah. I'm just Kantara says, this seems just like more lip service until we see the entire thing on live. Yeah. Again, just judging by the fact that it's a new creative director, yeah, absolutely. We'll see what happens till it goes live. I do think there is some real intention behind this, but it could all blow up, and it could also just be BS too. They before, when there wasn't a new creative director, and there wasn't new people in some of these positions, I would absolutely say that's exactly what this is, because I've said that literally, because every year they do like a director's note, and it's just, guys, you got to put on waiters because there's so much BS. It's ridiculous. So hopefully though this year, isn't quite as bad. Motherfuckers are so cynical. There's good reason to be though, right? Like, are you? I mean, if you know the history of ZOS, you should be cynical. And the people that aren't cynical usually haven't been in it for so long. And it's really funny watching over the years, because I've gone through it myself, being hopeful to then being disappointed until eventually you do end up as cynical. And that's because, it's the very first comment on this was from Voss Boss. We don't need a name call. But we don't need to, but the very first comment was by Voss Boss saying, I'm a beaten and battered wife returning to my husband because they recited my favorite poem. And that's what happens, and it's like, oh, they're going to change this time. And it's like, yeah, chances are they're not going to change. The thing, and I've said this, I'll keep saying it. I'm going to keep saying it, but The main thing you need to know about a company, guys, and what if a game, an update, or whatever is going to be good, is the thing you need to know is like there's like three things, but one of the major ones is like what they've done before is what they're going to do in the future, generally, with very, very few changes. Very rarely does somebody take a left turn. Okay. In life and certainly companies and everything else. If you look at something like Helldivers, which we're going to play here in a minute, people get mad at them or whatever. Helldivers, it's the second game they've made. It's Helldivers 2. People love the first game. They thought the developers did great. Those of us who know what's going on think they've also done the same thing with Helldivers 2. Not that there hasn't been issues, because there has. And yeah, people should be mad and give feedback or whatever. But Helldivers is consistent because the person in charge has been the same, right? That's what you look for, right? If there's not any big changes, they continue to do great things and to address all the community's concerns and to just make an amazing game. And so you can look at a company's past performance and predict with like 98% accuracy what they're going to do in the future if certain variables stay in place, right? Here we have a major one. The guy in charge of all the stuff we care about as gamers has changed. It has become so indifferent. So it could be that they turn over a new leaf. He was promoted internally, which probably means that he has the same culture as the people that were already in charge. So that's a red flag. Many of the people are still the same. So again, changing the culture, probably not going to happen. So there's a lot of things to suggest that it probably won't be good, but there is a glimmer of hope. Oh yeah, I'm being mostly sarcastic. Oh, okay. Bro, I'd be down, but I'm working 2 a.m. to 10. Hey, Voss, there'll be other times. We'll be, like I said, we'll be doing this in the future. So if you can't make it now, hopefully you'll be able to make it in the future. So no, don't stress. No worries. Apologize. Yeah. I understand, boss, 100%. And like honestly, that sentiment, I feel that very strongly towards a lot of the creators and Helldivers. Not necessarily like tourists. They're just naive. So a lot of people there's some people that are really upset, and I know I'm talking about another game, but it all relates. There's a lot of people that are really upset about Helldivers, and they're like the developers, like they're just in it for the money and blah blah blah, and like Helldivers has done so much stuff to show they're not in it for the money. They've done so much pro-consumer stuff. Like this stuff is just completely ignorant. But that person is just angry. And these are what has happened is that there's been some creators who this is the first time they started creating Helldivers content. They have 60, 100 and something K subs. They can do YouTube full time now, right? Much better than what I'm doing. I'm very happy for them. But I've been doing this for a long time, and so I understand the industry a lot more. And I understand because I was there too. I was in the same place they are. But they'll make these broad sweeping, oh, the developers don't care, whatever. And it's like, dude, you just don't know what you're talking about. And it's one thing for the average gamer to be like to think something and to make some statement, right? And you're like, yeah, they don't know what they're talking about. That's fine, whatever. When you got 60,000 subs, when you got 100,000 subs, when you're doing this as a profession, for me, I would expect someone to have a little bit more expertise. And if they don't have it, it's understandable, but get it, learn. And they express surprise in how the game is done, what's going on with the game, also with how creator programs work. Like they don't understand the core. Creator programs are bad. They're intrinsically problematic, and like they don't understand that, and so some of it is a bit of, and I don't mean to be condescending, but it really is just like they don't know, right? They're a little bit naive, and again, I was there. I probably still am there with many other things. It happens, but it's understandable to like feel that way. But yeah. Anyways, cool. Did we go through? Yeah. So these insights have led us to re-examine class identities or expressed design from individual abilities, passives. Where abilities are sourced and how it all came together to create a cohesive class identity. So again, they're reinventing class identity. That's going to piss people off. That most people that are saying class identity, don't want class identities to change from what they are now. And they're not going to be happy about that it's going to change. And I can't imagine that it won't. One overarching pattern you'll see as we move towards improving this experience is reorganizing class skill lines. adding in more benefits for sticking with one class skill line. Yeah. And decentralizing role-specific power. Cool. Our aim isn't necessarily to nerf, though. While some instances nerfs may be necessary, we'll be using values and specific effects to create more powerful and punchy abilities and passives, but with greater nuance that prevents subclassing from completely dominating the meta. They're going to piss a bunch of people off with this. They have not shown themselves to be competent in doing this, and so I don't think there's a very much of a chance that they actually do this. What we aim to achieve is twofold. For those who prefer to play a pure class, you should have a strong and satisfying class identity and the power you need to achieve your goals. For those who wish to dive into subclassing, you should feel the freedom to forge your own identity or even forego identity for the sake of specialized power, but with less of a difference in power compared to pure class options. Cool. Long-term vision. ESO has evolved tremendously over the decades, and as new systems and classes have been introduced, the bars for the play experience and our design philosophy have been raised. As part of this project, we have established a holistic long-term plan for how we aim to modernize ESO classes and to bring them more in line with one another. It extends beyond addressing identity, balance, and look and feel in isolation, and it aims to address multiple class issues. While many of the items in this list below have always been what we strive to accomplish, and that isn't changing, we'll be spending more time strengthening ESO's classes and focusing on these guiding principles. Our long-term vision is, we got a 3-point thing here. Every class will be viable in any role. What's the current? I'm trying to think of where we are right now with every. I know there's 21 total combinations here. We have this now. I mean, the pure classes like just all suck compared to multi-classing, so they need to fix that. But sure, to us, viable means players can reach their goals. That blah blah blah. They're just basically saying it needs to be close, but not exactly here. Like it doesn't. They're not all going to be perfectly balanced, but they need to be close. That's all they're saying. 2, we want each class to feel cohesive and true to its power fantasy with abilities, animations, and audio effects that reinforce its core identity. I really don't know what some of these core identities are to begin with. This means refreshing and modernizing abilities so they look and feel as impactful as those of more recently introduced classes like the Arcanist. Okay. We'll see how that goes. We're committed to evolving our design philosophies by using player feedback and in-game data to help guide class updates. As we address balance concerns, update class mechanics, our goal is to ensure that every class feels good to play, both mechanically and thematically, while keeping the unique flavor that sets each apart. All right, we'll see. Goals for the refresh of ESO classes. Our primary goals that support the long-term vision we laid out are strengthen the unique identities of each class, making them feel more fun, making them feel fun and rewarding, as well as thematically unique and engaging to play. I mean, this is kind of like generic stuff. Improve the balance between pure classes and subclasses so both paths have their place in the game. That's the biggest issue. Make each class's skill lines more varied and distinct for what they offer a role so that each skill line holds something valuable regardless of what you play. Again, that just seems like a absolute nightmare to balance. They're either going to be cookie cutter or it's going to be a nightmare to balance. So one of the things they also could do to address this, because they've done it before, is what they can do is they can claim that this skill line and this skill from this skill line is different from this skill line, but in reality they're basically the same. And they can try to like flavor it to make it seem different. That can be done relatively successfully, but in that case, you kind of end up with not actually having a bunch of different distinct skill lines. They're really much more cookie cutter and generic. I imagine that's the way they have to go, so that's probably what we'll see. It could still be fun. It's just a little bit odd. The idea of doing class-specific skill lines also has its problems, just to be clear. So it could be okay. Use both in-game data and player feedback to help inform our decisions, ensuring changes reflect player experiences and preferences. I mean, it's just hard reading this because it's bullshit. We'll see. I hope I'm wrong. Um, Address power outliers and abilities and skill lines and look at balance concerns as we progress through each of the classes, prioritizing mathematical and functional changes before visual and audio updates. Sure. Identity. Yeah, this is going to be hard because a lot of people can't. A lot of people can't separate. So whenever you're designing a game, like a lot of stuff you do is very rough. Like you have levels where there's just box. Everything's a box. A person is a box. A box is just walking around. Most people, myself included, really struggle, and this is everybody really struggle to see beyond to see what it could be with the audio and visual effects. But it's a problem. They can't design multiple things. It's just a necessary evil. But we'll see how it goes. But I'm going to guess not very well. I'm willing to give them a pass on this aspect. People were mad when subclassing became meta. They were going to be people mad when it nerfed. Just bite the bullet and fix it at this point. Yeah. 4, pay our developers competitive salaries. Yeah. Dude, it's just a small indie company that sold for like $3 billion, man. They can't afford that. And it sold to another small company, Microsoft. Yeah. I mean, they have the right idea here at least. Yeah. These are literally the reasons I stopped playing. Those 3 solutions solve the problems that would bring me back. Question is execution, like you said. Yeah, yeah. And I hope they do it. When they say identity, I think they mean narrative. When you say it, you mean gameplay. Okay. Whenever they say identity, I think they mean narrative. When I say it, I mean gameplay. And that's the difference between the 2 different skills and the same 20-second dot with different particle effects. Okay. Yeah, I just think that those 2 things should be aligned, Voss Boss. One should flow naturally into the other. And I'm sure you would agree. I think everybody would. But I also think that I think most people would. I don't think that they necessarily get that. And a lot of times, developers of all games types, including tabletops, will think that players won't notice. And a lot of times, 100% agree. Yeah. Okay. A lot of times, sometimes you can't get away with it. Players won't notice. More often than not, players notice, but don't know how to articulate the thing they don't like. Something doesn't feel right. And then that's why a lot of you guys like listening to me probably, is because I have thought about this more than any normal person probably should, but it's my job, so that's good. And so, and some of you have too. I'm not the only one. I know many of you guys have thought about it at least as much as I have, but being able to articulate the thing that is wrong, it just feels so good to hear. You're like, yes, that's the thing. So, keeping me in business, I guess. They are finally realizing that story matters. Yeah. Well, last year they completely threw it out of the park. Zombie Jesus, dude. It's been a while. Anyone can point to a problem, but usually you can't explain why it is a problem or even a solution. Yeah, exactly. Zombie knows. Got to trust the undead. I'm a voice for the people. Well, thank you, Cosmic. Identity. Below, we lay out the unique high-level identities we envision for each of these classes and how that would be translated into gameplay experience. This might be what you expect to see on a character creation screen. Okay, this graphic looks badass. This graphic looks sexy as hell. I want to play the game that associates with this graphic. I don't know about you guys. Hey, man, I understand, dude. I'm just glad to see you. Night Hero is just our collective ranting. Verbose game dev. Game dev Tulpa. Yeah, 100%. Cool. Arcanists, source of powers, seekers of truth and knowledge. Arcanists wield a form of runic magic so complex it requires a pact with Hermaeus Mora. Power fantasy. They're built. So, I like this idea. These sources of power are so ambiguous. As I pointed out earlier, definitive sources of power lead to a magic type, because that's already in the game, or something else. And so these sources of power are so ambiguous, and there's no way of tying this source of power into what the character actually does. Again, to do this, they're essentially remaking the game. If they do this right, they will be remaking the game. That's kind of wild. I don't think they're going to spend the money to do that, to be honest. Power fantasy. Their ability shapes fate by building and spending power and unleashing potential spells. Arcanists unleash bursts of power in cycles, excelling at mid and long range tactical combat. What are they going to take away the beam? How are they not also close range? Whatever, it's fine. I mean, they're going to if they're going to do what they say they're going to do, they're remaking the game. Does anybody disagree? Somebody disagree with me. Somebody play the other side, even if you don't agree. Masters of Life and Death, necromancers use corpses as resources by unearthing undead minions and tethering themselves to the battlefield. Power fantasies. Guys, I say necromancer weird. For those who don't know, this bugs the shit out of people because I get comments. I usually say necro, but I know from long experience that you should not use jargon. That's why I tend not to say RPGs unless I have to. I'll say role-playing games. I tend not to say many other things because there's some amount of your audience that's not going to know what you mean. And it's very frustrating to listen to someone where you're like, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And so I say necro, and then I'm like, no, I should say the whole thing. And then I say mancer. Okay? So I'm like necromancer, and apparently it sounds really weird instead of necromancer. Assuming that's what I think that's what people freak out about, but that's why it is, if anybody's wondering. I get comments on it all the time. So yeah, they gain power for each corpse they command, but they've already put a real cap because of performance issues on how many things you can command. Necro is in like a horrible place right now with this regard. We're being aspirational though. Maybe it'll be great. Use enfeebling effects and control the undead to do their bidding. I mean, that would be a fun power fantasy. I do think that's what we want. I'm not going to read through all of these. I will read the Nightblade one because they're near and dear to my heart. Nightblades use shadow and subterfuge. This rogue type steals power for the foes to stay alive and support allies. Guys, remember, you can find a link to this. I linked it at the very top of the chat, just FYI, for everybody if you're looking for it. Cool. This rogue type steals power from foes to stay alive and support allies. Yeah, preferring indirect combat and evasion, Nightblades often rely on mobility and stealth to survive at a distance and strike at the perfect moment with a finishing blow. I just want to point out that like this, so Nightblade, and I'm sure probably most of these other ones, I don't know, but Nightblade for sure was in earlier, like the name Nightblade was a class type, and it was a combination of being a roguish character and a magic user, and I think they're going away from that, and it bugs me a little bit. It's just like they're reinventing the wheel instead of like, hey, what? But whatever, it's fine. All right. In the interest of fostering communication, transparency, and building trust, I mean, they've done really poorly with this in the past, so I'm on the edge of my seat with what they're going to say here. We want to keep you informed on these upgrades progress. With this in mind, we're in the early stages of the process, and the class information outlined above is still subject to change and further refinement as we work through addressing each class. Again, I think the issue is they're going to get through each class. By the time they finish with the first one and they're moving on to the fourth or fifth, they're going to have a different idea that's not going to agree with what the first one was, because they're not starting out with an overarching idea that will guide them well enough. They have vague ideas, but it doesn't seem like a cohesive thing. Yeah, they almost won me over with that graphic. Yeah, it looks great. Is that card game? If that card game looked like this chart, I might give it a try. Hey man, it doesn't look that good, but I do like Tales of Tribute. Zoss let the art team out of the crown store to cook that graphic up. God, Vossboss, you're hilarious. I'm so glad you're in chat. Thank you for being here. Everybody, I'm glad, but Vossboss just, I don't know, you crack me up. Because it's true. Your observations are on point. Reading lore books increases your DPS for Arcanist. That would be dope. Actually, like, I know you're probably joking, Cosmic. And yeah, imagine all the possibilities. Thematic is tied to the mechanics and math. Exactly. Cosmic, we're on the exact same page. That's what I want. And I think that's what all players honestly want. And I don't think they're talking about AoE versus single target versus damage over time. And we're talking about, like, no, if you're talking about source of power, the more lore I know, the more powerful I should be. Right? So it's like we're on two different pages. Their ideas sound great. The stuff they've thrown out as what they're planning on doing is just like, what the fuck are you talking about? These aren't the same thing. Like, if you did the thing you said you were going to do, this would be great. I don't think, again, they would have to reinvent the game. So I would love to see these people reinvent or make a new game. I don't think that, yeah, whatever. It's not their fault either, just to be clear. That they, they're like, or it's not the creative, the new creative director, right? He's picking up where Rich left off. And I think generally in the community, I'm sure there's a lot of casual players that think Rich is great, but those of us who really know what's gone on over the years, we think he's really not good at his job. All right. Not a bad person. I'm not saying, I don't know what kind of person he is, but he's clearly shown himself, in my opinion, to be incredibly bad at his job. So, I agree they're in a really tough spot. They either have to double down in the direction that is losing their audience or do a massive overhaul of the game, which again, they just did that, right? Zombie says, I have been saying since I started playing ESO around 2020, Necros should be more like summoners and not just a warlock. Hey, man. Yeah. Yep. Volspa says, so it's now absolutely bugging me how, like, the Arcanist is almost solely a Hermes Mora defined class, while Sork shows its age being the generic Daedra class. And it's kind of jarring comparing them. Excuse me. Volspas, yeah, I think that is some of what they're trying to say they're addressing. Whether or not they'll do it, because I think Sorcerer would probably be a good class to start with all of this. I think most of you would. What do you guys think? Actually, I probably can't put 7 options. Drop in chat. What class do you think, but just type it in. What class do you think they should start with? What do you think is suffering the most right now, base class-wise? We are listening. How many times have we heard something like that? We're working on PvP performance. Yeah. But you can stop anytime you want, right? Yeah, 100%, Nani. 100%. I was half joking. Then I thought, actually, that would be cool. Yeah. No, I mean, I also felt that same way. Like, it's kind of a joke, but, like, also, yeah, it would be cool. How would they do that? I don't know, but that would actually tie the power source to the rest of the gameplay. Something like that, which is like why some of these things being so ambiguous is like, what the hell? It's a good idea. We'll see if the execution comes through. Cosmic says, yes, exactly, agreed. It's too much numbers talk and it breaks the fourth wall. Yeah, in a way that steals the magic of it. They just need to make ESO 2 and have a fresh start. Zombie, I mentioned this before, man. They sent out a poll to certain people asking about should they make a ESO 2. And they didn't ask me. My thought on it whenever it came out was, why the fuck would I buy a new sorry, I'm trying not to curse too much. Why would I buy a new game when you can't even unfuck the one you have now? I'm not going to. This is the last, I've told you guys before, this is the last Elder Scrolls game. The last thing from, maybe not Elder Scrolls if somebody else buys the IP, but like, this is the last game that I plan on playing. They make an Elder Scrolls 7. The only reason I'm going to get it is because I know it's going to be a train wreck and I can meme on it and maybe get some views. But like, I'm just not going down that road. I have no faith that any of these guys can pull their head out of the sand to like figure this stuff out. Like, not enough people have been fired. for me to have any faith. It would have been cool. It would, and again, it's the same thing. ESO as like this one has so much potential, and they can't do anything cool with it. Why would I trust them? Like if they make a new thing, they're just going to make the same stupid mistakes, and I don't want any of those people having anything to do with it. The power source description and the graphics were very telling. It belies a misunderstanding of the classes, in my opinion. Oh, I'll have to look. Hey, Frog, it's good to see you. I'll have to look closer at each one of them. I just didn't want to read through all of them on stream. I would 100% believe it, though. That's an interesting point. Thanks for pointing that out for everybody. Warden. Oh, man, Warden. Got 2 Wardens. I mean, hey, my peoples. 4 Wardens. Okay. Zombie says DK would be the simplest, DK or Nightblade. Okay. I think DK, though, is one of the most thematic, so I think it's in one of the better places, so I think they'll do that at the end. Nightblade? I don't know. We got a lot of Wardens, though. I think they should start with DK, but I'd want them to do Plar because I'm a selfish, self-centered sun boy. Okay. Plar, I don't know. You can't build a house on a cracking foundation. Yeah, exactly. Fixing shitty code is a lot harder than making good code from start. Preach. Zombie, you're a coder, right? Maybe you don't do that by profession now. I don't know if you've been I'm sorry. I'm trying to remember. But I would absolutely, trying to like figure out some, spaghetti code is a lot harder than, it's the same reason. Like if you try to start DIYing your bathroom remodel and then you bail halfway through and you go try to pay a professional, they're going to be like, either they don't want to touch it or they're going to charge you even more than if you just never would have done anything, because they're going to have to go unscrew everything you've done and then redo it. So it's going to be more work for them. And it's generally speaking the same with code. What is this Warden lobby? I was wondering, it could be I've done a lot of Warden videos. I haven't done a lot of Sork. So maybe, it's but yeah, the Zoss kitchen needs a Gordon Ramsay. Plar would be second for me, Nani says. Okay. Khan's video on the subject mentioned they published the list of what order they're going to do. Oh, did they? Okay, cool. I haven't seen his video. Reasons why to start over. Yeah. Luna says, I don't know what we're saying Warden for, but I'm in Warden. Oh, Luna. We're talking about what class they should start with. Frog, do you know what it is, or if anybody knows or anybody has the link, if you can drop it, what they're going to do first, I'd be curious. I'm in the middle of a prox. Oh, you're good. No. Lurking and hearing whatever is whenever it's possible. No worries, Lena. No. That was adorable. That was cute. Appreciate you for dropping the comment. I think. Oh yeah. If you're not going to jump over to Helldives when we're done here, jump over to Luna and see what she's doing. I think this is her Lucent Citadel trifecta group. I think. Should just make bathroom 2 in the kitchen. Right at the bottom, it says they are starting with DK. Okay. In my opinion, wow. They're starting with DK. Oh, it's right here. Jeez. Oh, Warden second. Okay. Dragon Knight. Really? I don't know. That's wild. Maybe as like a historically being a tank main. You do win, boss. You do win. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Rabbit. I'm sorry. Frog says. In my opinion, class. I'm getting my animals confused. In my opinion, class rebalancing is not going far enough. They need to rethink. Chat's coming in too fast. They need to rethink the way abilities work relative to content. Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, which I know you probably weren't here for it, with like having abilities like if I have a fire ability on an ice guy, like it doesn't have to be that. I'm picking something very basic and very clear to explain, but tying in the flavor to the actual mechanics. If you just try to layer on flavor on top of mechanics, a classic example of this is Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition. Okay, if you want just an amazing example of this, the actual mechanics for 4th edition are solid. They're rock solid. I think they're very board game like, not TTRPG like, which I have a problem with. But then the flavor, they just place it on top. It's kind of like putting two boards on top of each other and being like, "No, they're good." And then as soon as anything moves, one slides off. And you're like, "Yeah, dude, there was nothing welding them together." Right? Like you need the flavor to be interspersed with the mechanics. And that's what makes a good game. When games don't do that, which is there kind of seems like they're not going to, people don't like it. And it's another one of those things where players will know they don't like it, but they won't necessarily know why, and that's why. It's just putting two things on top of each other and hoping they stay. And it just doesn't work. I don't know, but Warden needs the love. Uh, yeah, thank you for pointing out that it's below their rollout. I appreciate that. I don't know why I missed that, Cosmic. I just hadn't looked over, I guess. Oh, you're not streaming today, unfortunately. Oh, okay. Yeah, I stopped streaming some of my sweatier stuff too, just because it's for various reasons. Probably maybe different than you, but I understand. Sometimes for me it was like getting a little boring. I think for people, and it is just watching the same thing over and over again. DK is the strongest. I'm surprised. Yeah, I think DK is not horrible, so it's kind of wild. They said they're going to start with. I would also say that most of us thought Warden, which at least Warden is second, but it's weird that I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. Arcanist is last. Arcanist is strong. Arcanist also has a classed skill line set up that is completely different from everybody else. I think this is probably a good idea. It's a not very good situation, but I think they're trying to make the best of it. I envy them not. Yeah, we're almost getting Unstoppable. That's awesome. Unstoppable was the try there, guys. They took the easier one first. Hey, yeah, I mean the flavor on it, that's not a bad idea either. Like I don't disagree with the way they're going about this. Cosmo, I think is probably easiest mess to sort out. Okay, it's generally very popular, so there will be lots of feedback, and in terms of theming, it would probably be easiest to keep track of. Yeah, I think you're right. I think both of you are right. Not because it needs the most fixes. Yeah. I would have thought Warden or Nightblade if we're just going to by current strength, but they are also considering other class things, I guess. Yeah, Nightblade never gets any love, and I think the main reason it doesn't get any love is because often it's still good in PvP, and they just don't know or don't care enough or whatever to do it to be like, oh, what about the people that don't PvP? And like, it kills me that Nightblade is so often the red-headed stepchild. Like I just don't think they usually give it the love it deserves. Hey guys, let me kick to an ad real quick. All right, I don't think everybody was probably back necessarily, but we'll slowly start to get back into this. Cool. We'll also continue working on a regular bug fixing and performance updates as normal. Our goal is to keep the relative level of power players have now. We'll work to maintain this within reason moving forward. This is stuff they should say, and it's important they say, but it's incredibly interesting. We won't focus on large balance changes outside of ability line refreshes and subclass balance. We'll continue to monitor feedback and adjust values for balance on these other aspects of the game as needed. We're currently looking into ways to alleviate some of the long-standing community concerns with both pure classing and subclassing in the short term, as well as underlying broader issues. Again, it all sounds very good. And then they give us some specifics, and I go, do you really know what you're doing? But hey, let's hope. A great way to better understand what we're discussing is through examples. As mentioned above, we're starting with Dragonite, which is really underway internally with high-level adjustments to abilities, visuals, and animations. I'm just going to scroll through this real quick. I just want to see. Oh, it's only okay. It's very short. Okay. So Dragonite. Refinement. Dragonites are attrition warriors. Are they? Okay, I mean, I guess they're the dot class. Maybe that's where that comes from. There will be many adjustments that help reforge this experience, including unique damage over time parameters like shorter durations, higher damage per tick, and ramping effects that let them build their power over the course of a fight. Okay. I hope they don't do some stupid stuff where they have skills. I hope they think it's a really good idea, or historically have thought it's a really good idea to have a skill that'll have like a 20-second duration on the dot and a 10-second duration on the buff, and it's just stupid. We just ignore the buff because it's too much of a pain to use for anybody. Certainly for so. I hope they don't do that. But this sounds fine. Another area that will improve is a new Avalanche passive and Earthen Heart, which allows you to slowly build up momentum with a stacking damage bonus while in combat that will be lost if you fail to keep up the pressure. Okay. Reconfiguring Dragonite's flames are ravenous and demand fuel. Dragonites are designed to require careful resource management. Guys, I'm going to finish reading. Creating the feeling that their flames always need fuel. This also helps balance the class, preventing them from dominating longer battles simply by outlasting their opponents. While we still believe in this design philosophy, we've also tried to build more satisfying methods of solving those problems inside their class kits, like reworking Inhale, which has moved to Ardent Flame, and now briefly restores a percent of your missing resources over time before unleashing its classic explosion. They have nobody, I'm sure there's somebody, but generally speaking, nobody in the game wants to have to deal with resource management as part of their core class design. It feels like garbage. And I don't think this is a good idea. Every time they've tried to do this, it pisses people off and people hate it and they get mad about it. And I'm not a hardcore DK player. I really don't care. But I can tell you, because I pay attention, because it's my job, just like it's theirs, that nobody likes this. Does anybody, I mean, am I wrong here, guys? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but nobody likes having to deal with fucking resource management to be able to cast their skills. And then the other problem with this is that this creates a very high skill ceiling. So you can do really good, but it creates also a very low skill floor. So if you're not very good, the gap between the not very good player and the very good player is bigger, because if you run out of resources, your damage falls off a cliff because you can't cast anything. And so this to me is, again, probably not a great idea. The flavor text sounds great, sure, but the actual like design here sounds really bad. Let me catch up on these comments. Yeah, I would have thought Warden and okay, sorry, never mind. We already went through that. Yeah, PvP, that's true. They need to separate PvE and PvP mechs to solve that. Yeah. My ads are just all bunnies. Nice. Good. Maybe Nightblade suffers some ESO flavor, Sakura bias. Hopefully I'm saying that right. The devs really love it. So if they do focus lots of positive changes, it will piss people off. Not getting angry. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Yeah. Huh. Frog says, you need lots of damage compression on dots to make that work in the current trash encounters. Yeah, that's a fair point. They could go with a more shorter duration dots like they kind of already have with some of those, maybe. But yeah, for real, I'm thinking of the 10-second minor force they put on Dark Deal that is 20 seconds long. Yeah, and they continually think that that's really interesting, and literally nobody thinks that actually plays the game. It's again this continual disconnect between what the hell they're talking, what they think, and like what is the situation. It just shows they don't know what they're talking about. Just the phrase kills the mood. Yeah, resource management is boring difficulty. Yeah, it's undesirable difficulty. It's difficulty that isn't fun. That's an excellent way of putting it. I loathe and detest the design of both Basai and Riptide sets. It's so annoying. Those are both sets that you have to worry about your resources, guys, and keep them below a certain level. It's so annoying and contradicts their original design philosophy. Yeah. Zombie G says, funny, they must have friend at Blizzard, because every expansion they try to make mana Try to make mana a thing to focus on for healers, and every single expansion, healers are like, no, please, no. Yeah, there you go. Volsmos says, I hate the DK resource minigame. Whenever I play it, I burn out fast. Playing against the DK, they have infinite sustain. You can only make the most of it as support since old fees resource spikes. Yeah. So, cool. Ongoing plans, class or core aspect of the game. We're committed to seeing this effort through. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Well, cool. Guys, I think we came. I think we saw. I think we went through everything. I don't know. There's probably more to be said, but I think until there's another announcement or we get a lot more to say, I think we'll call the ESO here. We're just going to jump into some jumping into some Helldivers now. Let me just let people know. I appreciate all you guys being here. It's been really fun chatting. I think some really good conversations. I really appreciate you guys' feedback and your thoughts. It really is helpful. Have fun. You're off to Time in the Sand. All right, Nani's hopping into Dune Awakening. Awesome, Nani. Enjoy. Thanks for dropping in. And yeah, we're going to hop into some Helldivers here, though, guys. And for everybody sticking around, guys, you know the deal. Guys, FYI, since there's a bunch of people here, let me just, before you go, for those who don't know, guys, there's going to be more tabletop videos on the channel. There's going to be a lot of different stuff. So just know the channel's changing. If you got any questions, let me know. And, if you want to play some TTRPGs, come join on the channel. Love to have you. I think that's it. I think it's the main thing I want to say. I just want to let you know that things are going to be changed. You're going to be seeing more tabletop content. I have to repost some of my older content because I want to keep it in the same place. So you will see some reposts, and then we'll have some new stuff. So cool. I did my part. Cool, guys. All right. Well, you know the deal here, guys. We're going to stick around, check out the Helldiving. We got a new war bond that's going to be dope. So we're gonna do that now. Just hit refresh if it doesn't kick you over. Again, I appreciate all you guys for tuning in, guys. I love chatting with you guys. Love that a lot of you guys have stuck around even though you don't play. It's still fun getting to chat. All right, guys. We'll see you. We'll for those of you who aren't sticking with us, we'll see you in a bit. We'll see you another day.